Okay, welcome back to New Realities. I am here again with my good friend Barbara Slane, and tonight's very, very special guest is Richard Horowitz. And exciting news is that Richard's book is going to be released, Starseed Revolution, tomorrow, Starseed R/Evolution, and it's a fiction book based on his downloads from these higher beings about how to save the earth. This is exactly what we need at this time. Barbara, you wanted to say more about Richard?
Yeah, Richard has been a pioneer with Lyme disease, with the environment, with pathogens, which all tie into what's going on our planet with the climate, but that's connected to consciousness. And Dr. Horowitz has expanded his consciousness and is connected with higher beings and messages that have relayed this pretty much the whole book, right, to him. It's kind of been a download. Mm-hmm. And with it, there's information on how we can raise our consciousness and save our planet. Right.
And so it's a comedy as well. We'll get into some of the comedy. But also, it wasn't, you thought you were making the whole thing up, Richard, until I introduced you to a whole community of people that said, we know exactly what you're talking about. So thank you for that. Do you want to say something? You're just going to smile.
No, absolutely, Alan. I had no idea the double reality I was delving into when I was downloading this book as an instruction from my spiritual teachers of, what can I do for these kids coming in with climate grief, who were over Lyme, their lives were great. And I asked them, do you want to get a job? Do you go to school? And the answer was no, because the world was going to end. And that was 2018. And,
Wow.
When the universe with synchronicities, the way synchronicities work, when the universe wants you to see or know something, it keeps throwing the message at you continuously until you get it. And these kids were coming in with climate grief day after day, week after week. And it's like, okay, I got it. So I entered into meditation.
Explain climate grief, though, because that's a word that maybe some people don't know.
So
what
these
is
are kids that basically have lost hope that there's going to be a future for this planet, that there's no need to go to college. There's no need to get a job, because basically the world is going to end. And why put your hopes and dreams into creating something for the future when that future is unstable and may not even exist?
Right.
Wow.
And that's the grief. And so you wanted to give hope to these young kids and say,
So
I wanted to find out, first of all, why they were so scared. So in 2018, I dove into the climate literature to understand what they were seeing. And I said to myself, oh my God, they're right. We're in big trouble. I started really delving in, and then I entered into meditation and I prayed to my spiritual family. And I said, what do you want me to do for these kids and for the planet? Because we're in trouble. And at that time in our administration was denying climate change. You couldn't even say climate change. And I've worked for HHS and I worked for the New York State Department of Health. So, it's really tough when you've got a governmental agency saying you can't say anything about a life-threatening existential situation which is unfolding that all the people need to know about, of which you should be acting with urgency, and you're not. You're denying it. So that was the mindset I was in 2018, opening in meditation. And what I heard from my spiritual family was, write a book. To which I responded,
just to backtrack, it's
Yes.
no accident. It's no accident that your work prior was in treating, tick-borne disease that has really caused so much harm and created such chaos, which is, as you said, a product partially of climate change.
It absolutely is. So the relationship between the increase in vector-borne diseases, Lyme is a vector-borne disease. It's carried by ticks. There's also mosquitoes that carry malaria, Zika, right? West Nile. So all of these vectors, these insect vectors, they're getting worse with the climate. Why? Because as the planet heats up, the reproductive rates of these insects is directly related to the external temperature. So when their internal temperature, which relates to the external temperature, goes up, their reproductive rate goes up. So the bad news is the mosquitoes, the fleas and the ticks are getting worse, but the good insects, like bumblebee populations and pollinators, those are going down, along with a whole bunch of reptiles, amphibians, mammals, birds. I'm going to show you the facts that.
Why are they going down if they're insects as well?
Well, I think from what I've seen, it's a combination of what's happened with the earth, with heating up, but also taking away some of their habitable land. And I think a lot of it, honestly, has to do with environmental pollution. There are now several thousand different environmental pollutants that have entered into everyone's bodies, every insect, every plant. You cannot avoid it at this point, which is why detoxification is like so crucial to be living on this planet. I think that we know for a fact with the bees, it's the nicotinoid pesticides, right? As it has been with DDT, with the eagles and other. So I think it's a combination of the landmass decreasing, the polar bears, right? They're running out of ice. So it's the mammals, the birds, the insects, and the reptiles and amphibians that we're in the early stages of a sixth extinction. We're losing 3 species an hour, 150 species a day, 150 a day, and 18 to 55,000 species are going extinct every year. It's only a matter of time until the ecosystem goes unbalanced. You don't have enough pollinators. You don't have enough insects. The ecosystem is going to collapse, and food supplies are going to be in big demand.
Before we go into this, there is a light at the end of this tunnel from the higher intelligence. Please,
there is.
That you're going to share with us.
You have solution.
The answers for climate change. I would give you absolutely clearly what we need to do right now.
Well, not just we as government and corporations, but individuals. That's what I want to know. What can I do?
And what do we have to do? So as we go into really this inevitable decline, this is promising that your book, which is coming out tomorrow, is going to offer us solutions. And I look forward to hearing them.
But go ahead.
So one of the synchronicities from today, if you saw the Washington Post today, and I put it on a slide for you to see it, the article in the Washington Post today, 24 hours before the book comes out. Remember, this book was written 4 years ago. And my agent said, "What are you writing a book about climate change for? No one cares about the climate." This is also my agent.
That's not true.
In 2018, he said nobody wanted to read about it from a Lyme doctor, right? So in any case, I'll show you the front page, but it's basically the IPCC report came out and said our window that we need to act is actually shrinking very quickly, or disaster is upon us sooner than people want it to be.
Yeah, I want to see that. But one more question before you go into the slideshow. I mean, I'm into aliens, but we don't need aliens to save our planet. We have to save our planet. They're not going to do it. Well, we have the ways.
Not necessarily. We're going to find out.
Well,
we do have the solutions ourselves as humans. Don't get me wrong. Right. I wouldn't mind a little extraterrestrial experience. And if you want to know, basically in the back of my mind, I was hoping with this book. So let's say this book becomes a massive success. And everybody now knows about the Arcturians and hybrids and the Wish Alliance, that there's walk-ins and indigos, right? Everybody starts learning about the fact that there are starseeds actually on this planet. That's not why I wrote it, but it happens to be a fact. And
he's a medical doctor.
Right.
Yeah, so you, Alan, have had this experience. You know what it is.
Others
have had it. So the answer being, this download that I had of 450 pages roughly 4 years ago, I'm looking at the timing of this going, it is unbelievable when you see the slides and see that this is coming out within 24 hours of when this book was written and why it was written. So I think the guidance, I think, was like, I really thank my spiritual teachers, because this was leaping into the ocean of, you want me to do what? You want me to write a humorous science fiction climate change book to save the planet and raise consciousness by giving enlightenment practices in case things go wrong? That's what you want me to do? It's like, yep, that's what we want you to do.
And by the way, I think people need to know that you have been a practicing, devoted Buddhist for how many years? 30 years?
40 years.
Okay, 40 years. So this is something that you have dedicated yourself to helping humanity. To you're a doctor. You've saved people's lives that have just been crippled with Lyme, and so this is the next chapter.
But we're really also going to get some of those Tibetan prayers in this presentation, because Richard throws it into everything he does, which is great.
I wasn't necessarily planning on doing chanting tonight, Alan, but we can talk about that later.
We can talk about that. So, is that enough of an introduction, Richard?
Well, no, but Dr. Horowitz, you are a character. I mean, you are the superhero.
Well, so this book is basically my alien autobiography. I am a half human, half Arcturian hybrid who's born in the year 2037, who's come to save the Earth. That's the storyline, and aliens come down to save the planet. And as you'll see, there are solutions that are being given, but this futuristic novel is looking at the first great climate change that happened at 1.5 degrees and the second great climate change that happened at 1.6. That's what's in the book. I was careful not to paint the pictures too much about the flooding and the wildfires and the heat strokes and the rise in vector-borne diseases and the hunger and the climate refugees. I tried not to paint it too clearly because I know that when you fix things in consciousness, that becomes almost an image. So I gave impressions of what happened, but realized when I wrote this in 2018, no one was talking about the chance that anywhere near 2037, we would reach 1.5 degrees centigrade with a several foot sea level rise. That's written into the book. It's now come out this last couple of months. That's what they're predicting, with a 40 to 50% chance in the next 10 years.
Right.
That means New York, Miami, and a lot of coastal cities are underwater if we don't get our asses moving now. And I will show you the solutions. It is not complicated.
Let's get to the PowerPoint so we can get to know what to do. I mean, really.
So, I mean, everybody who's tuning in, I hope that you share this. I hope you share this presentation. I hope you share the book that's being launched tomorrow, because everything we're doing, if we don't take care of this, it's not going to mean a lot. It's unnecessary.
Putin's not going to have any countries to invade, really. I mean, that's the little thing. But
and by the way, on page 18 of the book, said that when Commander P. Plamorius, who's Pleiadian, met with President Kennedy, you remember this, Alan, from the book, he met with Kennedy, and the only thing Commander P spoke to all the other presidents, Eisenhower, Truman, the aliens would not speak to them because the aliens have known the US government for a long time. Everybody knows this. But when they spoke to Kennedy, Kennedy got to speak to him because he said, how can we prevent wars? Page 18 of the book. Look at the Russian invasion that's now happened. That was page 18.
Is that something you made up, or is that something that you got from some document?
Well, actually, there are books written on the presidents and UFOs that presidents have met with them. There's actually a book written on it.
Oh, really? Is that the Grant Cameron book, or is that anyway?
You know, I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. I have it downstairs.
So is the message from that when you ask and you're humble, then you might get answers? I mean, because for a president to ask, how can we stop wars? That takes a lot of humility.
Well, and think about it. I mean, look, I've never doubted that extraterrestrials and starseeds exist. That was never even a question when I started writing this book. I just didn't think that some of the things I was writing about starseeds and about things happening, I thought it was science fiction. And afterwards I met Alan and I met a whole group of people, and they say to me, oh, what you're writing about? Oh, that's not really all science fiction. It's like,
they're living it, Richard.
What is going on here? It's like I'm having a dual reality experience that's happening right now.
Yeah, you weren't making it up. You were downloading it into the human field of awareness. So,
but that has to be very humbling for you, that you were downloading this precious information that we're about to hear.
So truthfully, the downloads, I'm pretty sure, were my spiritual family, the Kagyu Lamas, Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and I think Mel Brooks and Groucho Marx was on the line when I was channeling. I think it was a combined channeling effort. As you'll see, there's a lot of humor and enlightened wisdom kind of woven together in the book.
They say that humor is one of the highest levels of consciousness, so and we need it. So we're going to let you show us the presentation, and then folks, we're going to open up to Q&A, and I want to know how we can stop this.
Okay, we're going to find out how we stop it. And I know
right.
Jane is going to ask some questions, and also if you're watching on YouTube, write some questions in. It's about an hour PowerPoint. Let me make you a co-host so you can get on there with your PowerPoint, co-host. Okay, now you should be able to share your screen. And can you share your screen? There you go. All right.
Okay, great. So this will be about an hour presentation on the global health effects of climate change. I'm going to show you in the beginning the problems that we're facing. Honestly, they're not easy to hear. If I were to drop into my heart and feel into what is happening with humanity right now, and a lot of people are, it's difficult because it is difficult to see the suffering that is about to unfold if we don't act with great urgency. And the answer ultimately, and I'll just tell you at the beginning, one of the solutions is love and compassion. You have to want to help people. You have to want to care about people. You have to love this planet. You have to love the people on this planet. And I mean every person. I mean Russian, Chinese, Indian, they're human beings. We all want to be happy. We all don't want to suffer. We are all humanity, which is going through this, and everyone wants to be happy. No one wants to suffer. And what's coming at us without urgent action will be a lot of suffering. So here's the thing. This is a call to action. And part of the presentation, which I gave before, was the 1% global climate solution that Barb and Alan were talking about, that in this book, Starseed Revolution, when I was downloading the manuscript, I realized that there was a Lama about 100 years ago in Tibet by the name of Khenpo Gangsha Rinpoche. And he was looking outside his window in the monastery one day, and the mountains, the snow was melting on the top of the mountains. And he saw this as a very inauspicious sign. And this is obviously before anybody was talking about climate change. And he felt into what was happening, and he realized there was going to be an invasion of his country. He felt such compassion for the suffering that was going to happen. He had a heart attack and died. He fell on the stone floor of the monastery. And the way the story goes, a raven appeared on the window. This was Mahakala, an emanation of Mahakala, the Dharma protector of the Kagyu lineage. The bird flew over to his head, pecked on the top of the head. Because of this invasion, because of this big event that was going to be happening, that he needed to transmit enlightenment teachings. People no longer had time to go into 3-year retreat like they usually did in Tibet to know their true nature. So he himself recognized Mahamudra, these teachings on the nature of mind. He passed them on to Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who is the teacher. Many of you may know Pema Chodron. He was there at that time. And so was my teacher, the very venerable Trungpa Rinpoche, was there with Trungpa Rinpoche and Chogyam Trungpa.
You froze, Richard. Oh, we missed some of that. You froze for a second.
Okay. So want to be empowered during this time to make change. Watch this unfold. So what I'm going to show you with solutions tonight, and one of them I'm not going to go into tonight in detail. It's in the book, and there's a whole separate meditation PowerPoint I'll give you on it, on how it works. But basically, this book contains teachings that come from 100 years ago from an awakened master that I received during 10 years of going from Mahamudra teachings in Maine with my wife, Lee. It's in the book because if, God forbid, something goes wrong and we don't manage to save the planet in the way that I'm going to tell you about tonight, I need people to know about these teachings to stabilize their mind so they do not have to suffer any more than is necessary, and it will help them to reach awakening much more quickly than otherwise possible. So I almost have like something in the book in case it doesn't happen. But when we use these teachings and we manifest, we learn how to use the power of mind to manifest. What you will find in the book is that if I can get 1% of the global population to do the meditation that is in this book, Starseed Revolution, The Awakening, which means that you're going to meditate in a certain way with your mind that's very in the present moment, not following thoughts of the past or future or the present, resting your awareness in your awareness, looking at the essence of whatever is arising in your mind, and taking a positive thought and image and placing it into this open, clear, expanded state of consciousness. So this seed thought, this image clearly visualized in detail of a happy, healthy home, of this beautiful blue-green earth in space, happy, healthy home. This visualization done in the proper context when you access this state of consciousness will allow quantum physical principles to manifest, and what is now internal in minds will help to become external. And this has been published in the scientific literature years ago by Harvard with Benson, who recently died. He did the initial studies on meditation and social factors of what happens when people engage in synchronous, coherent meditation in a certain way. It will change social variables. They did it during the Israeli-Lebanon war, when they put these meditators doing the specific TM yogic city technique, which I took 45 years ago. I learned the technique. It's a very powerful technique. And it's based on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali from several thousand years ago. This book will show you how to use your mind to plant the seed, to do the visualization, while we integrate the scientific solutions I'm going to tell you about tonight. And there's 4 pillars of solutions I will be showing you. One is electrify everything, go to wind, water, solar. Elon Musk has showed that if you take a 100 by 100 square mile with solar panels, present efficiency, you can power the entire United States of America. We can get off fossil fuels today. That is number one. Number two, I'm going to show you slides on the biodiversity of the planet going down rapidly. We are in the early stages of a sixth extinction. We need to put aside 50% of the land and oceans on this planet and protect it. No pollutants, regenerate it. That is number two. Number three, the food supply is going to be adversely affected from droughts, from flooding, from pesticides, from many things happening. We need regenerative agriculture. There's a way right now, agriculture is releasing nitrates, which becomes nitric oxide. Nitric oxide heats the planet 300 times more efficiently than carbon dioxide. Methane heats the planet 30 to 80 times more powerful, but regenerative agriculture will take the nitrates out, stop the nitric oxide from being produced, and will help to re-put carbon dioxide into the soil. In other words, the carbon sink to get the carbon dioxide out of the air is regenerative agriculture. That is number three. The fourth that I will show you is geoengineering, and this must be done by our country. I need all of you to brainstorm and figure out how we're going to get John Kerry and President Biden to geoengineer the Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica that's about to collapse in the next several years as methane and carbon dioxide is released from melting permafrost. If we don't do this and this glacier falls into the ocean, New York City, Brooklyn, Miami, Bangladesh, parts of Europe, Amsterdam, Venice will be underwater. This is in the next several years. We need to come together, that the best and the brightest of us are going to come together as a community. We're going to learn what the physical solutions are, which I'm going to show you tonight because of the problems that exist, but there are spiritual meditative solutions. And whatever way you pray to the Archangel Michael. Michael's throughout the book, by the way. You'll find Michael's a good friend. Michael will be bothered by all of you, hopefully, by the time this is done, that he's going to hear a lot of prayers about getting moving to get things going in the right direction. Whatever way you pray that you know how to connect with spirit, this is the time you need to do it, because we now need to be empowered because of what I'm about to show you. The main disclaimer of impact I have is I've got 2 books from St. Martin's, Lime Books. This new book, Starseed Revolution, is coming out tomorrow, March 1st, by Permuted Press. I've received grants from Bay Area Lyme and the MSIDS research, and I do work for HHS from time to time, and I work presently for the New York State Department of Health on their tick-borne working group. Whatever I tell you tonight does not represent the views of the government. Their lawyers told me I must tell you this every time I do a presentation. After you see this presentation, I don't think you're going to doubt that the government would say it's all right, but I don't think we're going to be as strong as the way you're coming out, Dr. H. This is in the Washington Post today. This was what I woke up to this morning on February 28th, 2022. In a hotter and more hellish world humans are creating, parts of the planet could become unbearable in the not so distant future. A panel of the world's foremost scientists warned Monday, today, in an exhaustive report on the escalating toll of climate change. So this is the IPCC report, the International Panel on Climate Change, everyone's been waiting for. This is what it said. Unchecked greenhouse gas emissions will raise sea levels several feet. This was the prediction in Starseed Revolution when the book starts in 2037. This is a futuristic view. It's going to happen if we don't do what I'm talking to you about tonight. It's going to cause increased droughts, heat waves, heat strokes, hunger with disaster. It'll be tens of millions of climate refugees, eventually even more. I'll show you the loss of animal species and biodiversity. Lyme and vector-borne diseases are only going to get worse. There will be deaths from malnutrition, extreme heat, and pollution, and these are just going to get worse year after year. This is a sobering report that came out today, 24 hours before my book is released, which was written 4 years ago. This is the overview of what's happening. I'm going to show you tonight the science of climate change and why humans have a direct role in what is now happening with greenhouse gases. I'll show you where we are and why urgent action is necessary. We are seeing increased exposure to new infections and rise in mosquito-borne, flea-borne diseases. So for all of the Lyme patients out there, it's not good news. There's increased exposure to environmental pollution. So when you have wildfire smoke, which contains hundreds of chemicals that are toxic, they're less than 2.5 parts per million in the pollution factor. And what that means is these small particle pollutants get into your brain and they have been linked to Alzheimer's dementia. So as we are exposed to more wildfire smoke, you're exposed to these small particulate matters, which contains hundreds of toxins from burned plastics and cars and everything that is going up in smoke. Is extremely toxic. Apart from the hurricanes that are now flooding homes and causing mold damaged buildings, where 80% of my patients are now coming in with mold toxicity of one of up to 5 different mold toxins. This is apart from already thousands of environmental chemicals getting into people's bodies that have now been associated with ADD, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and a whole host of autoimmune diseases and allergies. And no one has regulated these chemicals. And that is why, in my opinion, some of the biodiversity figures I'm about to show you are going down. The rise in global temperature, you've seen this in the last couple of years. This is not news to you. More wildfires, droughts in the Midwest and Arizona, California. We've seen flooding in Brooklyn. We saw it in China. We saw it in Germany this past year. Level 5 hurricanes, tornadoes, and sea level rise. Now, I'm going to show you the Thwaites Glacier. It is not being brought out in the mainstream media enough that we've got about 3 to 5 years, according to scientists, before this thing falls into the ocean. We know that humans are directly responsible for climate change. This is not a question anymore of where this is coming from. And the 3 main gases that are heating it up is carbon dioxide, methane, which is 30 to 80 times more powerful, and nitric oxide, which is 300 times more powerful. And that has a lot to do with the agricultural practices and why regenerative agriculture needs to be done. You cannot keep pumping a gas that heats the planet 300 times in the way you're trying to grow food. Just logical, you can't do it, not if you want to stop this from happening. So when I wrote the book, and I did this science fiction science format where the book was written in a science fiction format, but contains hard science. In fact, if you fact check most of the things you'll read in this book, you'll see that a lot of it is actually true. So this came out this year in Biological Reviews, the 6th mass extinction, fact, fiction, or speculation. Quote, the biodiversity that makes our world so fascinating, beautiful, and functional is vanishing unnoticed at an unprecedented rate. Denying the crisis, simply accepting it and doing nothing, or even embracing it for the ostensible benefit of humanity are not appropriate options and pave the way for the Earth to continue on its sad trajectory towards a 6th mass extinction. So when I wrote this book, I opened in meditation. I've been a medical intuitive. I've never really wanted to ever tell people about the right side psychic part of my brain. There was no reason to ever tell anyone about it. I am a hardcore scientist and I use my left brain. And yes, I use my right brain probably as much as I use my left brain. And that's how it helped me find answers for Lyme and tick-borne, reading the medical literature, but then checking in with my gut intuition and figuring out what regimens are going to work. COVID-19, it helped me to find solutions. We did not lose one patient in our practice. Not one patient died from COVID-19 in my medical practice in the last 2.5 years because of the protocols that I told them to take, preventing it and helping when they got it. And if you want to see the protocols, my other website is www.cangetbetter.com. www.cangetbetter.com. That's because my first book is Why Can't I Get Better? Solving the Mystery of Lyme and Chronic Disease. And my second book is How Can I Get Better? An Action Plan for Solving Resistant Lyme and Chronic Disease. This other website, though, Starseed Revolution, is for the book. And you can read all about climate change, the problems, the solution, why climate injustice is racial injustice, what's happening with vector-borne diseases. Prince Ian is on TikTok for the younger generation who wants some advice. There's videos. Please take a look at the website and share it with people. There's a lot of information that will help you and will also give you some good laughs. So several Starseed books years ago, Margaret Donor, my next door neighbor, Barbara Masiniak, and others inspired me in meditation to weave this. But when my spiritual teachers said to me in meditation, we want you to write a book on the climate. And I said, why would anybody want to read a climate book by a Lyme doctor? And they said, no. You want to write a science fiction climate change book. And I said, I want to do what? And they said, yes. And you want to make it funny. And I said, I want to make sure I'm getting these instructions right, because this is not what was on my bucket list from before, was write a humorous science fiction climate change novel to save the Earth. Nope, never been on any of my bucket lists. So in any case, this book is going to highlight the problems you are now hearing about that are showing up in the IPCC report for today. But as you go on in the book and Master Dorje teaches you, you will see that I'm giving you the ability to understand how we can make the 1% global climate solution a reality by enough people on the planet going into meditative coherence. meditating in a certain way with loving kindness and compassion, asking for the benefit to relieve suffering and that all beings may be happy and well, and then using these specific meditation techniques with visualizations and saying certain mantras or words at the same time that become empowered when placed as a seed in this expanded, open, spacious field of consciousness. And this has been proven by the yogis from thousands of years ago, and it's been proven by Tibetan masters, people who are way more smart than I am. I am not giving you any wisdom that's coming from me. If there's anything smart in this book, it is coming from my spiritual teachers. I'm just passing on the knowledge that 40 years of studying with enlightened Buddhist masters, what it's taught me, apart from, of course, science of what I do in medicine, that I was able to dive into the scientific literature and understand it. This message has been approved by the... And here's to know how you're a starseed.
Humans, starseeds, and those beings who are not yet sure who or what you are. My name is Prince Ian of Arcturus, and I bring you greetings from the Arcturian High Council. Many of you living on this planet, the third rock from the sun in the Milky Way galaxy, have no doubt noticed there is an abundance of ignorant and aggressive people around you who regularly do incredibly stupid, thoughtless, rash, imprudent, irresponsible, absurd, senseless, reckless, and asinine things on a regular basis to themselves and others and the planet, which naturally makes you wonder, am I really from here? Are you regularly burdened with such thoughts, such as, what evil deed could I have possibly done to end up on such a backwards planet, where beings defecate where they eat and poison the water they drink and the air they breathe? If you are burdened by such questions, including wondering why even the most ignorant of animal species, like the bonobos, appear smarter than the race you appeared to be born into, then it is possible you are a starseed. Let me briefly explain to you 10 ways you can tell if you are a starseed. Number 10, when you are in a crowd of your peers, you never feel like you fit in. You experience an incessant loneliness, a longing to return home. You constantly cry at your 100th viewing of The Wizard of Oz and walk around your house with tears flowing down your face saying, "There's no place like home. There's no place like home." Number 9, you not only feel different, but you look different and you act differently than all of your peers. Number 8, you are blessed with a superior intelligence compared to your friends, an exceptional moral judgment, allowing you to know right from wrong. Your contemporaries, not so much. Number 7, when you are around trees, you feel like you must hug them. You want to love everything and everyone around. Every crystal on the planet, which is spread throughout your home. You rely on your personal astrologer or psychic to determine whether you should get out of bed on any given day. Yes, of course. Number 6, you have a deep intuitive understanding of people and events. You see and hear things that others do not, and your behavior appears to be bewildering and irrational to others, especially your parents. Number 5, you are reluctant to involve yourself with society and prefer being a hermit. You may live in a closed group or monastery, and when you do act on society's behalf, you prefer the company of animals to humans. You work in an animal shelter, World Wildlife Federation, Defenders of Wildlife, Nature Conservancy, or a similar organization. You own horses and prefer to spend most of your time in nature, talking to animals than to your peers. You love to fight for justice and the underdog. Number 3, you know the words of the Green Lantern Oath by heart, and you can be heard reciting them out loud in the privacy of your home. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worships evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman and Batman are your best friends. You own a 4K 3D television set and invite your friends over to watch Avatar and the Avengers on a regular basis. The Sci-Fi Channel is your go-to network, even when the Titanic is on. Yes. Number 2, people tell you you're an old soul at a young age. Your sense of empathy is so overwhelming that even watching A Wonderful Life for the 30th time, you begin uncontrollably crying and don't know why. You regularly ask for angels to visit you. You pray starships come down and take you away. You draw pictures of Devil's Tower regularly and don't know why. And the number one way you can tell if you are a starseed is physical constraints frustrate you much more than your peers. You study metaphysics and magic to understand the workings of the universe, to transcend your limitations, and regularly connect with the divine, especially as a child. You may astral travel to other dimensions in your sleep and have a feeling of genuine excitement upon learning you are superhuman with untapped potential that is waiting to be released for the benefit of mankind. So, if you have been shaking your head up and down watching this presentation feeling, yes, that is me. No, there is nothing wrong with you. You are part of the warriors of the light, and your time has come to awaken. Have hope, fellow starseeds. Instructions on awakening will be arriving soon at a bookstore near you. In love, be love. Except for those located on the planets Demius 2, Trumpster 5, and Cygnus X1, which is a black hole. Get yours now. Oh my God, are there no limits to this shameless advertising? Okay, we're back. So scientists have determined that we are in the beginning stages of a sixth extinction. They have determined by the year 2040 to 2050, at least 25 to 33% of all of our species will be extinct, including bees, pollinators, insects, multiple species of fish because of warmer polluted waters and certain mammals. The excess man-made carbon methane pollution has now caused melting of the permafrost, where Siberia had its warmest season in 130 years, and it is setting off climate feedback loops that are expected to raise global temperatures by a minimum of 2 degrees centigrade. So again, a lot of these journals are now coming out that accelerated modern human-induced species losses is that we're entering a sixth mass extinction and that there is a loss of biodiversity. It is one of the most critical current environmental problems threatening ecosystems and human well-being. They're now having records of extinction for reptiles, amphibians, freshwater fishes, and other organisms since the beginning of the 20th century. And population level extinction is the prelude to species level extinction. The United Nations has stated extinction rates are rising by a factor of 1,000 above natural rates. So these rates, if you look at them going back from the year 1500 till now, you can see that the extinction rates is now going up significantly over time. The United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity has stated we are indeed experiencing the greatest wave of extinction since the disappearance of the dinosaurs. They're rising by factors of 1,000 above natural rates. 3 species die every hour, 150 per day, 18,000 to 55,000 per year. And even if the extinction rate was only 0.01% per year, if there were 100 million different species on Earth and it was just 0.01%, at least 10,000 species would still go extinct every year. So this is being called an anthropomorphic defaunation, that the analysis of the data is showing that more than 320 species have already become extinct, and populations of the remaining species are on the average down by 25% in abundance. Now, this is nothing you're seeing day to day looking around you. This is why it's so important to understand this is happening in the background, and that 16 to 33% of all species are estimated to be globally threatened and endangered. And once the ecosystem collapses that way, it's going to be very difficult to figure out where people are going to be able to live and have food. So it's just one study after the other
that we are now on the brink of a sixth extinction. And again, who is at risk at this point? It's birds, more than amphibians, more than mammals, more than reptiles. 1.7% were on the brink of extinction by the year 2020, and we might be losing up to 10% a decade. Climate change is hastening the wrong types of species. For example, as I mentioned earlier, the insects are going down, but not the ticks, mosquitoes, and fleas. So since the 1990s, a warmer climate has shortened winters, extending Lyme disease reach throughout New England. And basically, it's saying that of the 17% of vector-borne diseases that are now present on the climate, we're going to see an increase in these. So any tick vectors, mosquito vectors that spread dengue fever, malaria, chikungunya, Zika, West Nile, Lyme disease, they're all going to be getting worse as time goes on. And our present US policy is inadequate to control the rise in vector-borne diseases. So vector-borne diseases are 17% of our infectious disease burden, and it's just going to get worse. And trying to spray pesticides to take care of these are just creating resistance, and these pesticides are creating havoc in the environment. The ticks that are out there now are also changing. So for example, the Lone Star tick just used to be in Texas. Now it's throughout the East Coast from Long Island all the way up to Maine. And the Gulf Coast tick, which was in California, is now being found in New York City. So this one Lone Star tick that you see with this little white dot on the back, it can transmit up to at least 5 different infections. The way to remember them is the mnemonic tears: tularemia, Ehrlichia, alpha-gal allergy, Rickettsia, and Stareye, apart from other viruses. And people can go on beaches and think they're getting chigger bites, and it's actually the nymphs, these small little insects, which will give you alpha-gal allergy, and then you won't be able to eat any meat or certain products. You'll have an anaphylactic reaction. I spoke to a patient last week who had this happen to them. The Gulf Coast ticks that are now in Brooklyn and New York City, they spread a specific rickettsial infection, like Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Looks the same, lab tests are the same. The difference is there's a small little area, it's called an eschar. It's like where it bites you, you can actually see that. You don't get that with Rocky Mountain, but Rocky Mountain can be deadly if you don't give a tetracycline within the first 7 days. So we have now new rickettsial infections that are going to spread. And what we found also with the climate is ticks are now coming out 3 weeks earlier. So normally May is Lyme Awareness Month, but Rick Osfeld would argue from the Institute of Ecosystem Studies that it might want to actually be April, because now the ticks are coming out 3 weeks later. And as we've talked about, these higher global temperatures are increasing their reproductive rates. We saw about 500,000 cases, 500,000 cases of Lyme last year. That is not counting the number of cases of Ehrlichia, Anaplasma, Babesia, Bartonella, tularemia, Rickettsia, Q fever. None of that is being accounted for. We're seeing environmental toxins, wildfire smoke, water damaged buildings from floods with mold, and more increases in heat strokes, dehydration, cardiorespiratory events, and even the type of ticks. When you have a wildfire like in California, and then you look at the ticks in those areas years later, they go from Ixodes ticks to dermatocenter ticks, which again are ticks that spread rickettsial disease, which can be deadly. So there is biodiversity collapse, where climate change is spreading these infectious diseases. And one of the things that it's doing is it's going to take some of these infectious diseases from the permafrost, put them up into the stratosphere, and then create pandemics like you just had with COVID, because as the permafrost is melting, these bacteria and fungus and virus that have been frozen for hundreds of thousands, millions of years, that humanity has no natural immunity, as they melt, the winds will take them up into the stratosphere at 50, 60,000 feet and carry them to North America. So this is already in the scientific literature. And the Department of Defense is saying this is a national security risk. You learn in the United States, if you see something, say something. I am seeing something and I am saying something. We're in big trouble. And the 4 pillars that I'm about to tell you about, which I talked to you about in the beginning, will be at the end of the solutions. We all have to figure out a way to work together, because these 4 environmental pillars will move us in the right direction so we can avoid the worst consequences of the flooding, of the droughts, of the wildfires, of the thawing of the permafrost, and more infectious disease. The reason it's getting worse is we're seeing spiking methane emissions. I said to you that methane has a warming effect 30 to 80 times that of carbon dioxide. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, just said that methane went past 1,900 parts per billion. What they're now worried about, as methane is released, there's more permafrost that melts, which releases more methane, which melts more permafrost. So you get into a feedback loop that it may go very quickly. This is what I predicted in Starseed Revolution by the year 2037. This is what I saw in meditation. I'm giving you solutions tonight, but we all have to come together and figure out how we can convince our government to do this. We can get our government to do this, but we're going to have to figure out through every channel you have how this is going to happen. This IPCC report, which came out last year, said there is no way that it is not human activity that's driving this. And that if it goes up to 4 degrees of warming by the next century, we might be lucky. It might even be up to 8 degrees. And the last time we were at 8 degrees, that was when the oceans were hundreds of feet higher. Just look at the Dover Cliffs in England. Human influence has warmed in an unprecedented way. This comes out of the IPCC report, and it's affecting every part of the globe. There is not one part, and Africa, which had nothing to do with the kind of climate change that is happening right now, they are having some of the worst effects in Madagascar and some of these countries with droughts and with flooding and with wildfires. Millions of people from starvation because of what we have done in industrialized countries, and we can't come up with the money during COP26 to say we're going to help these countries that it didn't even cause the climate change. The morality and ethics needs to be elevated. One of the solutions is we need to go from the way our society thinks now to an enlightened society. We need to have humanitarian values. This is the age of Aquarius. Prince Ian of Arcturus is an Aquarian with an Aquarius rising. Dr. Richard Horowitz is an Aquarius with an Aquarius rising. I have come to save the planet. It is true. And humanitarian values must now be established if we're going to help people that are much less fortunate than we are, that are now going to bear the brunt of what we as politically industrialized have done. The reason I told you in the 4 pillars that one of them was geoengineering is because in December of this past year, the American Geophysical Union said that there are cracks that are now showing up in the Antarctic glacier called the Thwaites Glacier. It's the size of Florida. If it falls into the ocean and the ice shelf breaks off, it's going to raise sea levels by at least 2 to 3 feet. Brooklyn, New York City, Miami, Amsterdam, Venice, parts of China, all of Bangladesh will be underwater. Scientists are predicting this within the next 3 to 5 years. The only way we're going to stop this from happening is geoengineering the Arctic. I will show you at the end what Harvard scientists and scientists from Stanford and great universities have come up with. It's not that we don't have scientific solutions. We do. And the last time we were at 420 parts per million, which is where we are now, was during the Pliocene era millions of years ago when the oceans were 30 to 80 feet higher. So where the parts per million is right now, multiply the sea level 30 to 80 times. I know this almost sounds impossible, but this is science. This is fact. This is no longer science fiction and fantasy. The consequence of a 2-degree centigrade rise, massive glacial melting in Antarctica, flooding in low-lying areas, destruction of farmland and food shortages, tens of billions of climate refugees being displaced from their homes. The hardest hit will be disadvantaged and poor nations, indigenous people that have already had such a hard time with all of us, local communities dependent on agriculture and all coastal livelihoods because the coastlines are going to be destroyed. The health risks from what's going to happen with climate change is heat-related morbidity and mortality. We saw many more heat strokes happen in Canada this past year when it hit 120 degrees, when 1 billion different species died in the rivers that got so hot it could no longer support life. There was a massive fish kill. Ozone-related mortality will increase emphysema, asthma, and respiratory problems. Mold toxins are coming from hurricane-damaged buildings. We're being exposed to wildfire smoke with less than 2.5 particle pollution associated with Alzheimer's, dementia, and a whole host of other diseases. There will be malnutrition because of reductions in food supply. Livestock, by the way, should not be around 15 or 20 years ago because they cannot use all of this land grazing, releasing methane. It's just not going to work. And there will be less feed and available water for them anyway. There will be less fish because of acidification of the ocean and pollution in number and diversity. And pollinator populations are going down that we have to worry about how we're going to grow food from plants that need pollinators. We will see increase in vector-borne diseases, as we talked about, and new viral, bacterial, and fungal diseases that are released from melting permafrost, of which humanity has no natural immunity. So this has been published in several scientific journals, that this is not me coming up with a science fiction scenario that permafrost is melting and all of a sudden new pandemics could start. This is a national security and a world risk. And we're not going to keep making messenger RNA vaccines every time a new threat comes out. Sorry, that's just not the way this is going to go down. It's better to do prevention first. Let's stop it from happening. I don't need to figure out what the vaccine is for the next virus, the next bacteria that is now affecting humanity and kill us all off. So what is in permafrost? Viable viruses, viable bacteria, viable fungi. The environmental ice appears to be an important abiotic reservoir for pathogenic microbes, and hundreds of isolates of bacteria, fungi, and viruses have been recovered from ancient ice and permafrost. They long-distance airborne transport through the stratosphere. They can lead to new pandemics with no immunity. What are we being exposed to as far as toxins go? Heavy metals, organochlorines, polychlorinated biphasic, PCBs, organobromines, organofluorines, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, pesticides, VOS, and of course, forever chemicals, which are in everyone's blood at this point if you live on this planet, which has been associated with decreased sperm counts, as an endocrine disruptor. It stops pregnancies from happening. It affects ADHD. It causes cancer. I could go on, and it's in everyone's bodies, which is why detoxification, when you go to your doctor and your doctor asks you about your prostate exam and your breast exam and your mammogram and your colonoscopy, they really should also be asking you about, are you in your far infrared sauna and detoxing and taking NAC, alpha lipoic acid, and glutathione every day to keep your detox pathways going, to take these fat soluble toxins and remove them from your body. Because all of these chemicals have been associated with diabetes, PCOS, insulin resistance, cancer, ADD, autism, ALS. Every one of these diseases has been associated with these environmental cancers, including the fact that there are over 20 million Americans with an autoimmune disease, and Borrelia burgdorferi, Lyme disease, and environmental toxins, along with microbiome disruption, has all been associated with these type of autoimmune diseases. When you get infections from the environment and you mix them with these toxins, what happens is you get an inflammatory response in the body. Inflammation is the #1 cause of all acute and chronic disease. 70% of our deaths and 86% of our healthcare costs are due to chronic disease, and it's being driven by infections and toxins and lack of proper nutrition of how to deal with this. So if you look at Alzheimer's disease, heart attacks, rheumatoid arthritis, asthma, it doesn't matter what you name the disease. The underlying cause is free radicals, oxidative stress, driving inflammation. So in Starseed Revolution, I have a 3-part paradigm to help transform and protect our world. The first is transforming planetary health through social, political, medical, energy, and economic structures. The economic structure has to go over to donut economics. This is something by Kate Raworth. If you know about her work from the UK, this is the economic system that is going to need to be adopted so that the ecosphere and the earth is considered in every economic decision we make. We can no longer afford to ravage the earth and pull things out of it without considering the consequences for the earth itself and all of the beings living upon it. The second part is transforming personal health through what I call the 3 I's: infection, immune dysfunction, and inflammation, about how we tamp this down, this inflammatory response in the body. If you go on my website, cangetbetter.com, and look under the COVID tab, you'll see that there are prevention treatment protocols I have for COVID. What I'm describing in that on my website is what I'm talking about how to detox from the chemicals and how to lower inflammation using things like turmeric, curcumin, broccoli seed extract, sulforaphane glucosinolate, N-acetylcysteine, glutathione, alpha lipoic acid, a little melatonin. It'll explain in the documents the scientific basis for why some of these supplements are essential for keeping down inflammation and to keep you healthy. The third is transforming the world through quantum physical principles, or what I call the 1% global climate solution, which is the meditation technique that is in Starseed Revolution. So to get the world back in balance, it's going to require 10 different areas to be addressed. And these are on my website also. If you go to starseed-revolution.com, the solution. Efficient energy production and storage. Everything needs to be electrified with wind, water, solar. We need to geoengineer the Arctic to stop it from melting from all of the methane that is now starting a feedback loop where the Thwaites Glacier may go into the ocean and raise sea levels. This needs to be done immediately by our government. We need to change agriculture and food reduction. As we said, we have to stop putting nitrates. Nitric oxide heats the planet by 300 times more than carbon dioxide. It's called regenerative agriculture. It sucks the carbon back into the land. They were asking about this carbon machine in Finland that got this massive thing that's trying to suck carbon out of the air. Here's what I can tell you that's easier. Create a soil-based system where you're having it being sucked back up into the soil. It's called regenerative agriculture. Regenerative development. We're going to need climate smart cities that are resilient. And then there are economic, political. Political, you need to define ecocide as a legal term that no matter who is running a country across the world, if you destroy the lungs of the earth, the Amazon, or any part of your country by polluting it, by burning it, putting it through fires, by not doing what is necessary to maintain and sustain and regenerate the ecosystem, you will be guilty of an international crime of ecocide, of killing the planet and the beings upon it. If we don't have this definition, it's going to be very difficult to move ahead, because then world leaders year after year will do whatever they want. You'll see that on the solutions, and this is in Starseed Revolution talking about this, with social structure differences, industrial, cultural, infrastructure, and energy efficient transportation. The ones that have to be integrated immediately, and I have Mark Jacobson from Stanford, who published a study in the journal Jewel and One Earth. It is a roadmap to get 139 countries completely off fossil fuels, and we can do it within a year or two if we wanted to. It avoids a 1.5 degree global warming. Right now, we're going towards 2 degrees or higher, which at that point with tipping points, it's not going to be a pretty scenario. Even 1.5, what you've seen happen now is 1.1 in North America, but it's 2 to 5 times warmer in the Arctic. That is why this is going a lot faster. He shows a roadmap on how to reduce societal cost of energy and create 24 million jobs in the clean energy infrastructure, with roadmaps that reduce power disruption and increase worldwide access to energy. 100 by 100 square miles of solar powered right now in the United States, with just present efficiency of the solar panels, we fuel the United States. We can get off fossil fuels. If you take the Sahara Desert, which has more sunlight more than 13 hours a day, and you put 1.1% of the Sahara Desert with solar panels with today's efficiency, you can completely get the world off of fossil fuels with 1744 terabytes of energy, enough to fuel the entire world, 1.1% of the Sahara. You just need to transmit it, and we now have ways of transmitting energy long distances. Geoengineering. How are we going to stop that glacier from going into the ocean? In 1991, the Philippines volcano, when it erupted, it cooled the planet by 0.5 degrees centigrade. If we put sulfates in the atmosphere, in the stratosphere at 60,000 feet, mimicking a volcano, it will block ultraviolet light and cool the Antarctic glacier and the Thwaites Glacier. We can do what's called Marie cloud brightening to reflect sunlight from the clouds using salt water. And Harvard physicists have looked at 1 million square miles of solar reflectors in the Arctic Ocean to reflect back the ultraviolet radiation back into space. If we were to do that and electrify everything with wind, water, solar, with regenerative agriculture, and by protecting 50% of the land on the planet because of the loss of biodiversity in the early stages of a sixth extinction, we now need to protect all the species on this planet. So again, I don't need to spend a lot of time on the personal health with the 3 I's. Again, if you go on my website, cangetbetter.com, go into COVID prevention, and it'll show you exactly the protocols, because we don't want to have inflammation, because it's the #1 cause of all chronic disease. And our healthcare system, which is already 18% of the GDP, it's expected it's going to break our healthcare bank above 30% with chronic health issues if we do not change the healthcare model right now, which is don't already have the disease, name it, and throw a drug at it. You got to prevent it in the first place. If you don't get the insurance companies to buy in to prevention centers of excellence, where you give people tax money back to staying healthy, the system's just not going to work. The third solution, transforming planetary energies through quantum physical principles. Mental health issues are now affecting 13% of the global populations, with large numbers of young people and adults now suffering from climate grief. It's over 50%, and the rates are going up, especially after what happened with the IPCC report today. According to the WHO, over 300 million people now suffer from depression. This third solution, based on accessing The power of the mind and quantum physical principles can help support some of these scientific solutions that I'm telling you about today with this 1% global climate solution. What it is trying to enter into a heart coherent state, getting enough people at the same time every day. It's going to be 24 hours a day in all countries, entering a specific heart coherent meditative state, holding a shared intention in meditation with certain specific visualizations and energy that goes into it. I am so happy and grateful now that the earth is healthy and happy, right? I'm so happy. There's an energy, an emotional component that when it's entered into these very clear visualizations in this open, relaxed state of consciousness, it starts to create energy in the quantum physical field. And quantum physicist John Hagelin has conducted research on what he calls the power of the collective. 1% of the people, these enlightened techniques are coming directly from my Tibetan masters and from Hindu masters, from enlightened masters from thousands of years ago. Again, this is not me making this up. I'm just transferring it and giving it to you to use it for the betterment of society and for your benefit. The first step is shamatha, calm abiding. We contemplate the 4 thoughts that turn the minds towards meditation. Now, we have a precious human life, and right now it's more precious than ever because of what's happening on this planet. Impermanence. We don't know when we're going to die, and we don't know if the earth will be in the same state even 10 years from now. Karma, cause and effect, and the nature of suffering, which is ultimately the ego or I that experiences suffering. So the motivation when we go into this meditation is called bodhichitta. We're doing this with loving kindness and compassion to reach enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings limitless through time and space who are suffering. We want to relieve their suffering, and now we want to stop the earth from going through devastating changes. So we adopt this bodhicitta meditation with aspiration prayers that we're going to help the planet. The breath is important. Our body is straight. In a meditation posture, it's called the 7-point posture of Vairocana. The back is straight, the eyes are open. Your left hand, your right hand rests in your left hand in your lap, or they're both on your knees. It's called the lion posture. Your tongue is to the roof of the mouth to connect the front and back channels. You breathe naturally with your chin being slightly, just like a little bit inward. And then you just relax the mind. And the 3 elements of this meditation is non-distraction, being fully in the present moment, looking at mind as it naturally arises, non-conception, not judging it. It's a good meditation. It's a bad meditation. Oh, that thought was bad. Non-conception, and even non-meditation, that this effort, there's no effort that even goes into this. You just sit and you relax. You don't do anything. No effort. It's going to be a very clear visualization in a heart coherent state with the right enlightened motivation, with enough people doing it with these very powerful meditation techniques. I'm going to try and work this on the physical, scientific level with solutions, and I'm going to work it on the meditative, spiritual level if I can, by trying to convince enough people to do this. We do this 5 minutes, 3 times a day. That's all it is. And dedicate the merit for the sake of all sentient beings limitless through time and space who are suffering. Insight meditation, when you're in this calm, relaxed state, you then look at your mind, you place your awareness on your awareness, and you look at your mind and you ask yourself the question, where do thoughts come from? Where do thoughts go? Do they stay anywhere in space? If a thought arises, does it have a color or form? Right? So you look at your mind. You can do that right now. What you'll find is you could never find anything. The way the Tibetans describe the nature of mind is it's the inseparable unity of clarity and emptiness. The clarity aspect is this awake quality that we have when we're resting our awareness on our own awareness in the present moment, non-distractedly. We're aware. But if you look at that awareness, if you look at the quality of the awareness, it's empty. It has no color. It has no form. If you look for where thought information, look at your mind to see if you can see where fear comes from, where fear goes. Does fear rest anywhere in space? Does fear have a color or form? Look, don't run from the monster. Turn towards the monster and look at its nature, not the content of the thought, not the content of the emotion. Look at its nature. Does it have color? Does it have form? When you see whatever you see, relax your mind in the open, clear essence. which is your essential nature. You're going to ask these questions and do this. And then the final stage where we're going to do this meditation is Ma Mudra, which is non-distraction, not following thoughts of the past, not following thoughts of the future, not following thoughts of the present, just resting in the present moment, non-distractedly. Non-meditation, just relax, do nothing. As Lama Gendon Rinpoche, one of my great spiritual teachers, said, happiness cannot be found through great effort and willpower, but is already present in open relaxation and letting go. Best meditation is open relaxation and letting go, but you must stay awake. There must be mindfulness and awareness with watchfulness of what's going on in your mind, because otherwise you'll fall asleep, right? Or your mind will be too agitated. And then non-conception. You don't judge any of it as it comes by, you just let it go. These meditation techniques come from a very famous enlightened Lama, His Eminence Jamgon Khyentse Rinpoche, who I had the great fortune to meet. He's now in his next incarnation. This is his instruction on meditation, which you will be learning in Starseed Revolution. Not lapsing into distraction, non-distraction, or confusion for a moment. No distraction, no meditation, no manipulation of mind, non-conception. Don't change the mind. Don't change anything happening. Don't manipulate it. Leave it alone. Don't do anything with it. Just look. Open relaxation and letting look non-distractedly. That is the essence of meditation. And this was just transmitted to me 3 days ago from His Eminence Pao Rinpoche Center in the south of France. This image, which is in Tibet, it's called the body region of Kushab of Guru Padmasambhava or Guru Rinpoche. It is never shown in the public. His Holiness the Dalai Lama released this image several days ago. It just showed up in the public domain. They usually only show it every 60 years. What he said is, considering the extremely degenerate age the world has descended into, His Holiness the Dalai Lama has given permission to receive the image blessing from the sacred image by reciting the Guru Rinpoche mantra. This is the mantra. Om Ahung Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hung. 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 Om Ahung, just look at the image and receive the blessing. Om Ahung Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hung. 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 Our conclusion for the night. This is the greatest existential threat humanity has ever faced because of what I've just shown you in the ecosphere with biodiversity loss. The wildfires, the heat strokes, the droughts, the flooding, the hurricanes, the tornadoes, more tick-borne diseases, environmental toxins, and imminent sea level rise, it's all coming. We've got to institute these 4 pillars that I have talked to you about tonight, and it is a significant national security risk. Every senator who has been blocking climate change in this country should be ashamed of themselves, because this is the Department of Defense that is telling us this is a national security risk. They need to do their job. If you happen to live in a state where your senator has not been on board in passing the Build Back Better Act, we need this act through Congress. We need to have resiliency in this country. As I mentioned to you before, 420 parts per million is extremely important because the last time we were there, the Earth was 30 to 80 feet higher during the Pliocene era. And if you look at the graphic below, you can see where present sea level is, and you take a look at the ice case scenarios, right, of where sea level will rise as we keep putting more greenhouse gases into the environment. We must geoengineer immediately because we've only got a several-year window before this doomsday glacier, that's what they're calling the Thwaites Glacier, before the ice shelf collapses and goes into the ocean. Every person now needs to be educated on the climate, not to be scared, not to have fear, not to say, oh my God, humanity is at a crucial point. As I've shown you today, we have solutions. They're right here on this one slide. The 3 essential solutions, apart from geoengineering, is transition to 100% clean renewable energy, wind, water, solar, as per Mark Jacobson, his 139 map from Stanford University. We have the map. We know how to do it. We need to do it now. Let America lead. Let us be the first country in the world that goes completely electric, that gets off fossil fuels, to show the world that it can be done. I can't change what China, India, and Russia are going to do, but I can call my senators and my congressmen and my local state representatives, and I can say, listen, we're in trouble. Here's these slides. We're going to give you the YouTube link. Please watch this. Please help us to institute these 4 solutions. We must protect and restore 50% of the Earth's lands and oceans because of biodiversity collapse, because of the early stages of a 6th extinction. And we need to transform our food system through regenerative agriculture and create carbon sinks to pull the carbon out of the atmosphere by putting it in the soil through regenerative agriculture. We have solutions. We just need to implement it. All of us now need to figure out how we're going to get our groups together. How are we going to tell people about this without scaring them, telling them I've got good news and I've got bad news? But it is, all of this is in Starseed Revolution, which is coming out tomorrow. And the review that we got from Kirkus Review, which is a major book review, is, quote, this fusion of eco-thriller, new age-powered speculative fiction, brutal social commentary, and comedic science fiction a la Douglas Adams offers sagacious solutions, I should say that 3 times fast, to the present-day climate crisis. A strange little gem of a tale, or an allegorical guide on how to save the planet. Yes, it is. Only time will tell, and that will be up to you and I. An odd but thematically profound and engrossing cli-fi tale. Thank you for your attention, and let's take questions.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Wow, Richard. Bravo, because your dedication, your passion to the mind, body, soul for the planet and for us, and you've covered every angle of it, and you've educated us in a way that is really easy to understand. I'm so grateful for what you're doing. Really incredible, and at the same time, extremely concerning.
Right, and a lot of research and dedication to the planet. Jane is an environmental researcher. Jane, do you have a particular question for Richard at this moment?
You did a fabulous job. Thank you. One thing, though, and you just mentioned this at the end, and it's so important. Get involved politically. Our representatives, senators, folks, they work for us. We hired them. They need to know what we want. I am a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, which is a wonderful organization, and we have one goal, and that is to put a price on carbon. And that's a place to start. It's not the only thing, obviously, but
what would that mean, Jane? What would that mean, what would that mean for companies, corporations, individuals?
It means that they would be taxed at the source, at the wellhead. They have to pay. And what Citizens Climate Lobby has come up with a lot of research and economists figuring it out, there would be a fee that is collected and then distributed to all US households equally. So, people will say, oh my God, my taxes are going up. Well, not really, because you would get your money back. And obviously this would help more low income families than high, but that's neither here nor there.
And what I understood, Jane, I have this actually, I talk about carbon tax in the book. And what I got from the literature, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, that 80% of this is coming from like a very small group of people that would have to pay this tax. It's only like I think it was a couple of hundred main industries that are
corporations
that would be paying this tax.
Yeah, it's whoever's digging up the petroleum, at the wellhead.
Jane, you're in this area. Can people contact you for people need?
Sure, but it's a great website and a great organization. I encourage people to join. It doesn't require anything of you.
Can you put it in the chat room? What is it?
Citizens Climate Lobby. This is interesting. There was a wonderful man in California when the first Al Gore movie came out, and he was really freaked out, Marshall Saunders, and he saw the movie 10 times in a week. And he got on a plane and went to Washington to his congressman and said, I'm not leaving until you get this. You know, and from one person, now there's 150,000 people all over the world.
Right, we need to get you in Washington, Richard.
Yeah.
Well,
No, seriously.
we lobby.
Well,
It's twice a
the
year.
question will be is, since the book released tomorrow, I will contact Antonio Delgado, who's my congressman. I will contact our senators, see if I can get in touch with our 2 New York senators. I get stuff from Kristen Gillibrand all the time, and certainly Chuck Schumer sends stuff all the time. So I'll see what I can do. But the fact is that I have worked for HHS, and you may find this interesting that I did send out a blast to my government contacts at the FDA, at HHS, Department of Defense. I let them know the book was coming out and that, I'm now going and talking about problem solutions. So it's not going to be, they're going to know that it's happening. But the question, of course, is I need to find the right contacts to figure out how I can get to Kerry and to President Biden and say, this is what I'm seeing. What are you a climate scientist seeing the same thing I'm seeing? Because if so, we need to institute these things immediately, and America needs to be the world leader to show everyone how it can be done.
Well, Richard, I have a practical question because you kind of went through the solutions kind of fast. I knew you had time. What can I do tomorrow or right now? I want to know just my little piece of the planet right here, what to do.
Well, Jane probably brought up the number one most important is join a climate organization.
No, but practically, what can I do in my home,
Okay,
what I'm
so
buying, what
in
I'm...
our home, as an example, we
Yeah.
have solar on our house, but also my medical barn was an 1860s renovated barn, is in a sense completely off the grid. I have 28 large solar panels on our property, which are completely powering my medical office. We're not using one little bit of fossil fuel whatsoever for my medical office. I have an electric car. We've cut down certainly on our meat consumption. It's a big issue as far as, being vegetarian and kind of moving things on. We're certainly not flying as much as we used to. I mean, obviously anything you can do where you're not using fossil fuels, right? And using solar and getting an electric car, right? And watching the choices you're making, even keeping your computer a couple of years longer and not going out and buying every new fashion. They've really shown that it's this economic system that is destroying the earth. I mean, we need to learn to live with our products maybe a little bit longer and not have them kind of go kaput after a couple of years. But I would say that's probably some of the most important things you could do. At this point.
2 things. I was told that the solar panels in the Northeast are not effective, but I'm hearing the contrary, that you're saying that they are effective.
Oh, absolutely. Solar City. I have two energy companies that did this. They're extremely efficient. Oh no, we haven't paid for heating and cooling in this 1,700 square meter. Not 1 cent have we paid in electricity since these solar panels are up.
So what would it take to convert your home to that? Is that more complicated?
The problem with the home is you have to retrofit. Well, our home has solar panels, but the problem is doing something like geoengineering, which is really another good solution if people can afford it. Right now, we're using the Carrier green speed system, which is about 5% more energy than doing geothermal. Geothermal is by far probably the most energy efficient and best thing you can do. But right above that are now the Carrier green speed systems, which we have in the barn. It doesn't run on fossil fuels. It's electric, and it's much more efficient than prior units. That's what the solar panels are now feeding, and we're not paying any electrical costs.
Right.
And then what about going down to basics of everything that we buy is in plastic? We are kind of just boxed in. And so does it take all of us to say to our local stores, we want to buy bulk, we don't want to have plastic containers? Like, what about that?
Issue, Barb. In fact, you're going to see when you read Starseed Revolution, I bring up plastic a lot. And just so you know, they're now taking marine plastic and they're making it into sneakers and all type. They're able to use plastics. There are newer forms of plastics that they can take some of these marine plastics and convert. They have enzymes and things they can now do. But you're right, it's a big problem because the microplastics, we're now eating about a credit card of plastic gets into every human being per year. 1 credit card of plastic. Why is that concerning? Plastic is an endocrine disruptor. It causes insulin resistance. the plastics are carrying with it hundreds of other types of chemicals that got pulled along with the plastics. So yeah, plastics are a big issue, but that's why you've got to detox your body. That's why we have a far infrared sauna in our basement. That's why I take glutathione every day. I'm
But
not
it's
eating.
not about
But wait.
stopping. Wait, I just want to say it's not about stopping buying it. Stop manufacturing plastic. That's what has to be done.
But
Correct.
the thing that we could do, which is
What?
the easiest, is not to buy plastic bottled water. You can put in a water system in your home, there are tons of them, and fill your bottles up. I mean, that's different than having to go out and buy berries and everything else that's housed in plastic, but we could really stop the use of plastic
Yeah,
water
but can we
bottles.
stop corporations from making plastic? Can we do
What we
that?
can do is we can turn it into the plastic they're using and use marine plastic. In other
Why
words,
can't they just stop making plastic? Go
Well,
back
if-
to bottles.
the industrial
What?
revolution is not finished yet, but let's just say that there are new plastics that can be done. They can be recycled from the ocean. And that's a really big thing that should be done, is pulling the garbage out of the ocean, recycling it, getting it into the plastics. My sneakers that I run on my treadmill downstairs, it's all made from marine plastics.
What's stopping corporations from buying marine plastic? Why can't that be instituted as?
It can
Well,
be.
but there is something because they're not doing it.
It's laziness.
No,
and it's-
there
it's
needs to be
economic.
laws, right? A law that would say, okay,
Money.
mandate.
Money.
No, but it has to be, money is more important than destroying the planet. Is that what?
Of course. look what's going on.
Unfortunately, that has been what's happened.
No, but
Right?
why
It's
can't it be a law?
economics at all costs. It's like make money and get bigger and bigger and stronger, and like not really worry so much about what you're doing to the environment around you. Sorry, you just hit the wall. The wall just hit today with this
But
IPCC.
we need
report.
leaders that do care, that will create laws that will stop corporations from destroying the planet and the people. Right, I mean-
People are very
And
comfortable.
first, Alan, is to get our congressmen and our senators to work together to help the people of the United States and stop fighting amongst themselves with this political garbage that we're all fed up with for the last 20 years. Like, be ashamed of yourselves and go serve the American public. What's wrong with you people?
Right,
And
I
just
agree
just
with
to
you.
backtrack, since we're all ingesting a credit card worth of plastic, how do we get that out? I mean, like, what are we doing? It's in our bodies.
So in my last book, How Can I Get Better? If you go to the 2 chapters, Lyme and Functional Medicine, Lyme and Environmental Toxins, there are 2 chapters in the book. If you read those chapters, in the back of the book, I have a back section where it'll show you all the supplements you take. And you basically detox through the skin with far infrared saunas. You detox through the kidneys by making sure you're getting at least 2 liters of good quality water per day. You detox through the bowels, enough fiber, proper probiotics, microbiome in good shape. You're detoxing through the liver by making sure your phase 1, phase 2 pathways are in order. There's diet, there's nutrition, there's all kinds of things you can do. You keep your detox pathways working. That's how you get the stuff out of your body.
That's how you get plastic out of your body. Can you get the plastic out of your body by that system? But, okay, when you detox, you're sitting in a sauna. Where is the plastic lodge in the body? Like which organs?
Well, they're
particularly?
nanoparticles,
No, but-
right?
That Barb, you just hit it. That's exactly it. They're nano.
It's everywhere.
That's the problem, is they're all over.
So and the body knows that it's a foreign substance and needs to get rid of it. So
Well, it comes out of your skin. It comes out, like you said,
Yeah,
out
so
of
the
your
nanoparticle-
kidneys and-
So, when they looked at Alzheimer's brains and they looked at what was underneath the biofilms in Alzheimer's brains, right? Because Alzheimer's is an inflammatory disease. One of the things they found that was causing amyloid production and tau production, the protein that is destroying it, is environmental toxins. They are being found under biofilms with Borrelia burgdorferi, Lyme disease, chlamydia pneumonia, Helicobacter pylori, herpes virus 1, herpes virus 2, herpes virus 7, herpes virus 8. I can go on. The point is, infections and toxins are driving inflammation. So the basics of our healthcare system is not there yet as far as how do we prevent, number one, getting the toxins in, getting them out, but you've got to work it on all these different levels. And that's why I'd suggest reading some of the chapters in my book, because it'll give you the basics on how to do it.
right. Does anybody else in the Jane? You have more questions, or anybody else?
I want to say one other thing that
Okay.
I love the meditation that you did, and you talked about having the collective meditation. So perhaps kind of, riding on your book, that you would have a set time, monthly or weekly, where people tune in and do that meditation.
You're correct, Barb. And although I wasn't thinking officially of doing it, of course, it had to come through Spirit's brain into yours, right? So that you would tell me this, that I have to set this up at some point. But you're correct. I will probably be doing regular online meditations that people can join anytime. And
How do people sign up for that with you?
Well, and let me know. I could broadcast some of these meditations to the world.
The main way to follow me, and I'll get the word out, is usually my Facebook page, which is Dr. Dr. Richard Horowitz.
I think that would be so important. And that one that you put up that the Dalai Lama just released, is that for a higher awakening of consciousness, that by looking at that very unusual picture and doing...
It's what's called the treasure. So there are tertons. You'll read about tertons in the book. Prince Ian of Arcturus is a terton. He's an emanation of a prior guru who had an association with Guru Rinpoche. And these tertons will sometimes have treasures that appear. They're mind treasures, they're physical treasures. They discover things. This was a treasure. This was discovered, in other words, as a enlightenment treasure that looking at the image, it being experiencing it and getting the Guru Rinpoche mantra actually gives great blessing directly from Guru Rinpoche. And again, it was only every 60 years they would like unfold this in Tibetan and then put it back. The fact that it's been released into the public tells you that the Dalai Lama knows that some bad things are coming and we need a bunch of like awakened people who are blessed.
Is that in your book, the picture, or can you access that online?
I can get it for you, Barb. And then if you want to share it among the community, I'll get you the photo so you can share it among the community.
Yeah, I found that very powerful.
You did? Good.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I would do a weekly meditation. I think that would be good, a group intention.
We're making it weekly now from monthly because there is that urgency. And from what I heard, that the most urgent matter is this glacier that is really going to change things. And so why are people not aware of this? I mean,
this is why I have to end up doing these type of presentations and PowerPoints to show people what's happening. Because if I were to tell you this and not show you the underlying science behind it, it's like, come on, you got to be kidding me. Like, why isn't this being screamed right from all the towers? Because it's like a life-threatening human extinction. If you,
yes.
And it's like, and it's.
Why?
All this nonsense that we're focusing on, I mean, it's not nonsense, but is also coming out of situations like this. It's going to make it so much worse. Why are we not?
It reminds me of the movie Don't Look Up, ignore the science. Don't pay attention to it. Look at your iPhone and social media. This is what.
And by the way, speaking of that, when I was at the IHS conference in New York City the weekend before, I was doing a book signing there. Andrew Weil gave me a really lovely quote and he was there. We took a picture. One of the people came up to me who got a book and said, "Would you like me to get a book to Robert Downey Jr.?" I said, "You have a way of getting a book to him?" I said, "I wanted to connect with him and Leonardo because they're involved in the climate." She said, "Absolutely. My son-in-law is Will Arnett, on Murder City or Murderville, whatever the hell is on Netflix these days. He's hysterical." By the way, if you haven't seen this, he's hysterical, ad-libbing. So I wrote a book with something for Robert Downey and said, "Hey, Iron Man, would you like to help me save the planet?" I got a few Marvel jokes in there too, by the way. You never know. You throw out seeds and you never know. But I saw this book becoming a movie. When I wrote the book, it was like it was on a movie screen looking at it with the characters. So I'm hoping someone will actually pick this up and make it into a movie.
So can you just recap, because, you went through a lot of slides, just how the 5 steps to save the planet. Just recap that.
So the 4 physical ones that I was discussing, apart from the spiritual, which is the 1% global climate solution, would be the spiritual one, right? As far as a global coherence initiative, which, believe it or not, has already been published in the literature. It's not even like I'm coming up with this. This has already been an established phenomenon using these kind of quantum physical principles. I'm just giving techniques that were taught to me by 40 years of studying with Tibetan Buddhist enlightened masters and these great yogic masters from the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali to kind of give you some ideas of how we can use these powerful meditations. So that's the first. Work it from the inside so we can change the outside, although that's dualistic perception. Once we get into universal perception, there is no inside outside anyway, but separate point. So the four that I was mainly focusing on, the four pillars that are really urgent that our country has to do is number one, electrify everything, get off fossil fuels with wind, water, solar, using the map by Stanford University, by Mark Jacobson. And Mark is highlighted in the book. You're going to see that. In fact, he gave me a quote in the front of the book. He has a map that tells you exactly how to get off fossil fuels and do this and create almost 25 million jobs at the same point in time. Easy. And as I said, Elon Musk has done the calculations. 100 by 100 square miles in the Arizona, California, Nevada desert powers the US. You could have several of these big solar installations on the East Coast, the Midwest, and on the other side, on the West Coast, that is powering all of the United States, apart from getting everyone to get their own solar, right? And get electric cars. This is not an impossible thing to do. We just need to put our mind to it and go, we're doing it. The planet is in peril. Let's America lead the way. You want to make America great again? Let America show the world how we as Americans can come together and show you how to have a healthier, saner planet and help you all so we can all be friends and live in a humanitarian manner, not this attack each other. And who can be stronger and better? It's like we're all humanity. We all.
Well, they say that what's inside is outside, and everything. The planet's becoming toxic, and it's because of the way we're treating it. And so it's a reflection of us to a
Look,
certain
the enlightened
degree.
motivation, if there was ever a time to say, Chugam Trungpa used to speak about this all the time. If there was ever a time to have an enlightened society, it is now. Because if we don't adopt the principles of enlightened society, which, by the way, you'll read about the ones I'm talking about with generosity and humanitarian, spirit for people, and really caring about the planet and caring about others, caring for them as much as you care about yourself. If we do that, everything will go well. That was the instruction my Lama gave me getting out of med school. Just exchange yourself with others, do for them what you would want done for yourself. Everything will go well. That's all this is, right? It's just wanting to benefit everyone the way you would want to benefit yourself. So first is electrifying everything. The second is the loss of biodiversity that we're in the early stages of the sixth extinction means you must protect 50% of the lands and the oceans have to be protected and restored, not just protected and left alone, restored. You've got to get
Froze.
with insects. Okay.
You
froze. Say that again.
You said you've got to get what?
So you have to get the biodiversity loss. You've got to get 50% of the planet and oceans that are protected, but also restored to get the ecosystems back in balance. That's the second. The third is regenerative agriculture. The food supply is going to be going down. I have a 26-foot geodesic greenhouse in the back of my property that I'm starting to learn how to grow food. I hate to tell you this, but it is going to become an issue in the future. Regenerative agriculture is, and they've even got now E. coli, by the way, that have been programmed to make food. If you don't know this, it's happening. And it will be the future. The future of food will be bugs and E. coli making stuff apart from regenerative It's true. You'll see it happen in the future. But in any case, regenerative agriculture is a carbon sink. You pull the carbon out of the air into the soil while giving back the nutrients and everything you need for a healthy agriculture, right? It's a whole new different way because nitrates, the way we're doing agriculture is forming nitric oxide, which is heating the planet 300 times more than carbon dioxide, even more than methane. The agricultural system has to change. So you electrify everything. You protect and restore the planet. You basically will geoengineer the Arctic, and you're going to make sure that you're going to change over to regenerative agriculture. Those are the four pillars in physical universe. And the fifth is going to be this spiritual element to try and get things to move in the right direction.
What
was in your backyard? You said there was a name. A
geodesic
I
dome.
have a 26-foot geodesic greenhouse. Go look online. It's from Colorado. It's called Growing Spaces. Look up Growing Spaces, 26-foot geodesic greenhouse. There's a 3D. You can go right in and look at these greenhouses. It's about 500 square feet. You can grow enough food for a couple of families.
So electrify the world, grow your own food. 3 was
grow your food, but also regenerative. There has to be a change in the agricultural system to regenerative agriculture.
Which means you do what instead of the way it's doing?
There's books written on this as far as how you have to change over the practices, but
Okay.
it's out there. Like, we know how to do it.
And can big farms do that too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It could all be done. The third is protecting 50%. And the fourth, but the most important, and Barb, you pointed this out, if you don't geoengineer the Thwaites Glacier in Antarctica now, and that thing drops off into the ocean, it's not even just a 2-3 foot sea level rise. That ice shelf that's holding the Thwaites Glacier in place, there's going to be glacial melt and runoff from behind it because nothing's going to be able to stop it.
Mm-hmm. But isn't it true that it's not just the planet getting hotter, it's also getting colder? It's like climate change is, some places seem to be getting colder. Is that true? Or is that not what your research shows?
No, there are definitely parts that where you have to remember, and I didn't talk about this in the presentation. I threw enough scary facts at you, but there's something called the AMOC, AMOC, the Atlantic Meridial Overturning Circulation. It's what people think about how the ocean currents and the heat exchange happens, which controls your climate. So you know how you had the heat domes where you had heat staying over Seattle and Washington for a while? It's because as you slow down the AMOC and it changes the way the circulation of the currents is going, it's changing the climate, where now this warmer atmosphere holds more water. So you get droughts in area where it's holding the water, and then it dumps all the water with flooding in other areas. So it's like some will be cold, some will be hot, some will be drought, some will be flooding. It's going to depend on the climate, and this AMOC is slowing down. Now, if this slows down enough, I don't want to see it be the movie. What was the movie where the Ice Age happened? It was it was like 10 years ago. They showed
Knowing, was that called Knowing or something like that?
No, I forgot the name. It'll come to me. But it was one of these like extinction event things because the AMOC completely slowed. Now it is slowing. I didn't go through it with you tonight. There's a lot of reasons why we want to get the Arctic back to where it was a couple of 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now,
And the rainforest.
the big thing is also, where can people find your book?
So my easiest way is just go on Amazon, put in Starseed Revolution, Dr. Richard Horowitz. And sometimes if you put in revolution, if you do r/evolution, it comes up faster. But if you go on my website, and really you should look at my website because there's so much good information on the climate, on Lyme disease, on the solutions. It's there. It's www.starseed-revolution.com. And if any blog you read on that website, if you click over Amazon and you click it, you'll go straight to the book.
Okay, great. Now, does anyone else have, Jane, did you have another question? Yeah, Jane.
Yeah, I do have a question. How could we stop the glacier from melting? It's already committed in a way.
So what I'm thinking would happen, and I'm not sure they would do this, but first of all, if they cool the entire West Antarctica, right? Not any place else, but just right in that area to stop the solar radiation and cool it down. Right now, they're talking with Cloud Brightening about taking like salt water. And I know they're doing this in places. What I'm seeing is these massive ships pouring millions of tons of seawater and freezing it, almost as if you took super glue into some of these cracks, that you're going to cool the area and you're going to pour the water and freeze it back into these areas. I don't know how practical this is. You would need to speak to a Harvard physicist on it. But I know that because the methane is being produced and now coming out so much more frequently, these spikes, if we get into a feedback loop that this thing cracks and it keeps coming out, it's going to go fast. Like it's going to go way faster than people think. So my sense is that if the Arctic is 2 to 5 times warmer, you've got to geoengineer and cool it down now, and that'll stop the permafrost from melting, and that'll stop more carbon dioxide and methane from coming out. So, I mean, that's my sense of how this is going to work based on what I've read from the geoengineering.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay, does anybody else want to just raise your hand or put your camera? Is anyone else? Can you show us the cover of the book again, Richard? Just so people know what to look for in their bookstore and their, just hold it up to the camera, and there we go. Starseed Revolution. Okay, great. It's a beautiful book. It's hardcover, huh?
It's hardcover, and a friend of mine, Elizabeth Kelly, drew the front cover. She painted it. It's a painting we have downstairs. I told her the final battle scene of what happens, and she basically painted it. It's great. It's like retro 70 comic book stuff. It's beautiful.
Oh, can I see it again? I didn't get a good look of that at that cover.
Sign up for meditations again.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Oh, okay.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful book. Wow. How do people sign up for the meditations that we might start?
I will be posting it on my
Oh,
Facebook.
on your Facebook page? Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Period Richard Horowitz.
I have a question, Richard. I don't go near Facebook or Amazon. So can we have that on your website about the meditation? Because I will join.
Absolutely. I'll put it on the Can Get Better website, and I'll also put it on the Starseed website.
Oh, thanks. And probably Barnes and Noble, I could order the book.
So
It's on. By the way, it's a Barnes and Noble link. Also, you can click on the site. You'll find it.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
So Richard, after you save the planet, what's next on your list?
I'd like to do more music, Alan. I'd like to, basically do some Starseed music and get a whole bunch of great musicians together and just have some fun.
I think what everyone needs to know that your sense of humor is making this so much more digestible, and that the balance of that with the seriousness of this crisis, I think that it works really, really well together. You definitely channeled Mel Brooks.
The thing is how do you discuss such serious subjects this way? I think my spiritual teachers, when they gave me the guidance 4 years ago to write this book the way I did, which again was never anything on my bucket list. If you had asked my wife of Lee, and you know Lee well by now, it's like 26 years we're together. If you asked her, was it on Rich's bucket list to ever be a novelist, to write a science fiction? It's like, no, not at all. It's like, it was the climate. It was like I needed a way to transmit this information. And remember, 4 years ago when I wrote it, none of this was supposed to even really happen. I was looking at the science going, oh my God, it is going to happen. I heard what was going to happen, but it wasn't yet like in the scientific literature that, in the next 10 years, we've got a 2-foot sea. That was not out there in 2018, if you go back. So I think the guidance I got was the right one, because you need humor to really discuss this. And there's no reason you can't. I think one of the greatest qualities we have in America and also in the UK is humor, right?
I agree. And the other thing,
we need humor and science together with intelligence, right? And spirituality and proper motivation, but it's all got to come together. Otherwise, it's difficult.
And the other thing is that there's this bizarre aspect of human nature where we don't believe things and take them seriously till we get cancer, till there's a flood. And it's all about, the main word here tonight is prevention. You've done it in your practice and you've paid a lot of attention to it. And now it's prevention for this climate situation. We can't wait until that glacier melts.
So in any case, that is the good news for Barbers. There are solutions. We have to figure out how to get our congressional, local, state, and congressional, how are we going to convince them? The Department of Defense already said it's a national security risk. How do we convince them to work together and say, here's the solutions, let's get going and let's show America that we can do this and help the rest of the world, so we all will be friends and have a great world together. It's not that we can't do this, we can, but it's going to require some willpower and a lot of people coming together, right, to do this.
Well, the thing about this situation that is everyone is responsible for their little corner pollution, for buying plastic, carbon footprint. We are all at fault and we can all make a difference. That's the thing. It's not like yes, governments, corporations can do a huge amount to clean up the environment, but all of us.
It's all of us. And Richard, I just want to again thank you for everything that you've done. I know everyone on this call is extremely grateful, and we look forward to, fearless leader leading us forward with the meditations and everything else.
Into the Starseed
With
Revolution.
your
Come to save the world.
The Starseed team.
The Starseed Revolution is here. And Richard, it's up to you. All of us, though.
It's really up to all of us.
And buy Richard's book, because it looks like a great read. I mean, it is a great read.
And it's for mind, body, soul. There's everything in the book.
And to save the planet. So
just these little things, nothing much.
Yeah.
So please, I appreciate people sharing the word. And also, when we get the link for this, people really should see this YouTube video, Alan, because essence of what people need to know, both the problems and the solutions. So no reason really we shouldn't try and get this out there so people can really benefit from it.
It's live right now on New Realities. I want to thank everyone in the chat for commenting and supporting this, and share this with everyone you know, because the PowerPoint alone is impactful. You know, that's
Very
just,
impactful.
just watching that. Jane, any final comments from you? Did you learn anything tonight?
I certainly did, and I am trying to every minute deal with my anxiety, which is just off the charts.
Climate stress there.
But you're using your anxiety, Jane, you've always used your anxiety to be proactive. You're not just sitting there, you're doing things, and that's you can be anxious and helpful at the same time.
Thank you. That's the best we can do.
And,
Yes.
and a good reason to be meditating every day during these times, right?
Definitely. Well,
True.
I think we've hit a low point in civilization. All we have to do is move up, work on ourselves and work on our surrounding environment. And there's a chance to save the planet, I'm saying. So
Well, it's now.
it is now.
It is
It
now.
is. It is. And-
So
But
we
in
look
answer
forward.
to your- Okay,
What's
Alan,
that, Jane?
well, just in answer to your question, it's like we're the frogs in cool water and it's just heating up, and you say, why isn't everybody freaked out? And that's because it's death and nobody wants to deal with it, frankly.
well, or it's life, and people
Well,
should deal with it.
depending
you
on
know?
where it goes.
No, you
Yeah.
can trace this historically to so many events. People just, they wait until the bad news hits, and that's not the way we
Well,
don't
the
have.
bad
we
news has
can't
already
do it.
hit. If
It's
there's
one-
extinction levels happening right now, that's bad news.
Right, but whether cancer, all of this stuff, tick-borne, I mean, there's so many things that are preventable. It's prevention. That's what we have to focus on, not waiting until disaster strikes.
Disaster struck.
I know, but it has struck, you're right. So get to it, guys. What are you doing?
So in any case, if we're all going to have to come together in groups and figure out what part we are going to play in helping here, like what is our individual gift, right, to help at this time. I mean, everyone has to do that. We all have our ways we connect with spirit in prayer. But I think everyone should sit down and meditate and figure out what your role is going to be, how you are going to help during this time. I mean, what I'm asking you to do, of course, is just spread the word with my book. Let everybody have some good laughs. I promise you, you will laugh a lot reading this book, despite what you're going to find out. Promise.
And we really do. Yeah.
But I need to get on. I need to get on the circuits. And Alan will tell you, for anyone who's written a book, you need to make the bestseller list, because then the New York Times interviews you. Bizarre, by the way. I was in the Wall Street Journal this weekend. Another book that just came out by Megan O'Rourke, who's a patient of mine. I can say that because she just wrote the book. I was just like a major piece of the Wall Street Journal this weekend about Lyme disease. And I'm thinking, that is just damn ironic that the Wall Street Journal is talking about what I'm doing for Lyme when I'm coming out with something for the climate.
Great.
But it's all interrelated. It's all related.
Right. And I think we do have to keep looking
Oh, well,
up.
let me do this. So Alan's book, which is on the UFO bestseller list, Making Contact, it's wonderful. It's a lot of stories. It's Alan's encounter that he had, and it's scientific. It's a not woo-woo.
It's a great book. I loved it, Alan. When I read it, I
And it
absolutely
looks
loved
great. Forget all that.
But-
It looks great on a bookshelf. I love the design.
But it also is about us as humans. It's not about beings out there. It's how do we rise to the occasion of an expanded humanity? Because that's the only way we're going to save ourselves, and by making contact with the earth, each other, and whatever else is out there. But we have to clean up our own mess. Richard's course is number one if we're going to make contact.
But Richard made contact.
Well,
so that's
but we made a mess here. We have to clean up our room before we have company. That's what I'm saying, Barbara.
I agree.
So,
but what I'm saying is like you, the making contact is providing a lot of information
Yes.
for us to get back to some kind of sanity.
right. There is a bigger picture going on here, but we can't look to these beings out here to save us from the pollution we've created. So,
What I was going to say earlier, Alan, though, if the book does well, though, and everybody says, my God, these aliens are so funny, I can't wait to meet them. I'm thinking then maybe they'll actually come down and help us because, the humans are not going to throw atom bombs and spears at us and try.
well, I do think they have helped us a little bit, but we have made a mess of this beautiful planet, and we really have to clean it up and get lawmakers in place that are going to help us. What were you going to say, Kim? Did you have
I'm
some
going to say just a couple of things. One
Yeah.
thing that I do in my corner of the planet, I pick up garbage all the time.
Yeah.
I don't make a big deal of it. I have a plastic bag in my car. I pick up garbage on the beach. I pick it up in parking lots. I pick it up at the Westport Library. That's one thing I do. And I'm also trying to get someone to help me with a bumper sticker design, if I could make it out of some kind of okay material, to get people to turn their cars off in the parking lots. It drives me insane.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I've contacted 2 people to help me with a logo and something short and easy to read, because people like to belong to things. If they think it's cool or it's good, which is happening, and I'm sorry to say that, but that's sometimes people's thing, which is helpful. So anyway, that's what I'm looking to get some help with.
Okay. And Jane?
I do that too. I go up to people to ask them to stop idling their cars, and mostly they say thank you, but I do start with like, please don't shoot me, but I'm not gonna get in your face.
No, I hate seeing garbage, especially when I was in Hawaii. I was compulsive to pick up garbage. There's a beautiful paradise, and you see a wrapper or a bottle there, a plastic bottle. I had to pick it up.
So please tell all your friends. Richard, hopefully we can come back, Alan and I,
Yeah.
with you in a couple of weeks or whatever.
We'll do
where
a
we
part
can-
2.
We could do a prayer again. We can do the meditation. We can invite everyone and be in this together.
But let's talk to our politicians. Let's make them work for the job that they're supposed to be doing for us. They're working for us and the planet, and I think, otherwise we're
I think
just
maybe
helpless.
what I'll do is I'll try and condense down the problems and solutions onto a 2-page sheet. And
Yeah.
then see if I can get it out, and you can spread it out, and see if we can even send this to the legislators and just get it out to everybody. Maybe start somewhere, right?
I think that's a good idea, and even just to get it out to our mailing list, just to get out something condensed, because attention spans are
I
shortening.
know. I'll send you this link, and if people want to watch this, it's on New Reality, youtube.com/New Realities. Thank you.
Yes, please tell your friends to watch this.
And subscribe to
buy
that
the
channel.
book.
And
And
buy-
buy Alan's book
Oh,
too.
stop already. Stop. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Horowitz. Thank you.
And thank you
My
for everyone
pleasure.
online. And